What's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So recently I was watching a talk from Terry Smith of Fundsmith. 2 weeks ago, this came out on YouTube. It's a fantastic talk. It's just an hour long. All of you should watch it, in my opinion. But watching this talk, it really got me thinking, what would it look like to develop a Fundsmith stock screener? Okay. For those of you who follow Fundsmith and Terry Smith, you know that they really pay attention to just a couple core metrics for their kind of portfolio, right? They call it look-through ratios. So what they do here is they take the weighted average of all of the companies in the Fundsmith portfolio, and they compare these different metrics to what they would be with the S&P 500, the FTSE 100 in the UK, and this kind of captures a lot of the differentiation between what's important to Fundsmith when looking at investment opportunities, and how those things measure up for the rest of the market. And so I thought, well, what could I include in something like TIKR Terminal to develop a screener that would return some of these Fundsmith type companies. So there's a few different metrics I'm going to use in TIKR Terminal for my screener. The first is return on invested capital. Okay. Now there's a number of different nuanced ways to calculate return on invested capital and return on capital employed, which is what Fundsmith talks about, return on capital employed. The weighted average for Fundsmith companies in 2020 is 25% for return on capital employed. Another thing we're going to be looking at is gross profit margin. The weighted average for Fundsmith is 65% compared to the S&P 500, which is just 44%. And then the last one we're going to look at is free cash flow yield. And I believe this is probably on the next slide. We don't necessarily need to find it, but let's see if I can do it quickly. Maybe I can't. But anyway, the average free cash flow yield for Fundsmith companies is like 2.5%. And what that is it's the free cash flow over the last 12 months divided by the market cap of the company. So that's kind of what we're going to do to devise a screener in TIKR. The one other element that I want to add here is industries that we're going to be looking at. Fundsmith, is very kind of focused on the industries where it will look for opportunities. And Terry Smith talks about this in basically every presentation that he gives, where the return on invested capital tends to persist over time in each given industry. And so Fundsmith has really figured out what are the 5 to 10 industries that we should really be focused on, and we can ignore the rest. And so how I did that is I clicked on each of these holdings within Fundsmith, the top 30 holdings, which make up 93% of the Fundsmith portfolio. And I looked at, okay, what is the industry classification according to TIKR for each of these companies? And which industries have multiple companies representing that industry in the top 30 of the Fundsmith portfolio? So we can see that here. IT services had 4 in the top 30 for Fundsmith. And then you've got beverages, healthcare, equipment and supplies, personal products, software. So I'm just going to use these 8 industries, according to TIKR Terminal, to run this Fundsmith screen. Okay. So, I think there's like maybe 50 or more industries to choose from on TIKR. So this is really going to narrow down the universe that we're looking at. So here's how I set up the screen in TIKR Terminal. We're going to display the country. I'm not going to exclude countries. I just want to know, which country is this particular company in that show up in the results. Market cap over 20 million. That's arbitrary. It's just, I want to exclude things that are super small and illiquid. Gross profit margin percentage. Like I said, for the Fundsmith portfolio in 2020, the weighted average was 65%. So we're going to come back a little bit from that and just say over 60% is what we want to see the results for. So that's our profit margin metric. Return on invested capital. Return on capital employed, weighted average for Fundsmith is 25 last year in 2020. So let's say anything over 23 is going to show up. We're just, building a little bit of a buffer in these numbers since, 65 is the average. So we don't necessarily want to exclude anything under 65, but maybe just go a little bit below that. So again, these are arbitrary cutoffs. You can tweak these as you see fit. Now, industry. I included those 8 industries that showed up multiple times in the top 30 holdings for Fundsmith, which again make up 93% of the portfolio. So now this is the free cash flow metric here. I had to get a little creative with this one because there's no free cash flow yield in the screener for TIKR Terminal. So what I did here is I found something that was as close as I could get trailing market cap divided by the levered free cash flow. Okay, so if you take the inverse of this, you get say a conservative estimate of the free cash flow yield. So if we want to see everything that has a free cash flow yield above 2.5%, okay, 2.5% is about the average for the Fundsmith portfolio companies. If we want to see everything above 2.5% free cash flow yield, we want to see everything below a 40 times ratio of market cap to levered free cash flow. It's really just the inverse. We want to see less than 40 to see more than 2.5% free cash flow yield. And then I wanted to put this above 1, which is really just, what is that? A free cash flow yield above 100%. Is that what it is? My brain is getting a little bit scrambled here. The reason I put this lower bound in is because I wanted to exclude, situations that were a little bit wonky. I think this is going to exclude negative free cash flow situations. So that's why there's that bound there on the lower side. So let's run this screen and see what we get for the Fundsmith TIKR screener. So it turns up 104 results, okay, out of the entire universe of 66,000, more than 66,000 global stocks with a market cap above 20 million, or it's really any market cap is the global universe. So that's great. This particular set of metrics that I'm running for the Fundsmith screen really gets us to a very digestible number of things to look at. So I have this sorted by last market cap. You can see here Visa. Visa shows up. Visa is actually in the Fundsmith portfolio, so that's a good sign. The Sage Group is also in the Fundsmith portfolio. You look at that. That is a very attractive free cash flow yield for Sage Group. It's like 9%, if I'm doing the math on that correctly. Fair Isaac Corporation, that's one that caught my attention recently as well. But I wanted to make a tweak here. So a lot of what's being excluded is companies in the Fundsmith portfolio where the free cash flow yield is lower, right? And for a lot of these great companies that screen really well on metrics like high gross margins and high return on invested capital, people know those tend to be great companies. And so the free cash flow yields tend to get pushed down. So just to see, let's say we raise this to 75, which would be, what is that, like a 1.33% free cash flow yield, anything above that. So we drop our criteria for free cash flow yield. Let's see what kind of results we get. We had 104 results with that 40 there. Now we get 134 results, so a few more. But you can really start to see some great businesses popping out here that weren't popping out with that restriction on free cash flow yield. So we've got Microsoft, which is the top holding in the Fundsmith portfolio. You see that right here, Microsoft Corp, 6.8% of the portfolio. Of course, you have Visa. Now you have Moutai coming out, which, is about 58x with the market cap over levered free cash flow. Adobe, one of those 1,000 baggers that I came across in the study that I was looking for. Over the last 40 years, what companies have returned 1,000 times from their lows over the last 40 years? Adobe was one of those. You've got MasterCard, which was just a hair over that previous cutoff of 40x. Novo Nordisk is in the Fundsmith portfolio. Edwards Life Sciences, Fortinet, I believe, is in the Smithson portfolio. I don't think it's in the main Fundsmith portfolio. I think it's in the small and mid cap portfolio. Which is kind of silly since it's a $54 billion market cap company. But Align Technology. What if we switch this around? What if we just look at the smallest market cap companies? I don't recognize any of these so far below 50 million. Life Vantage Corporation I recognize. I think that's probably shown up a few times in the Magic Formula screener. What else do I notice here? United Health Products, I recognize. Co-Diagnostics, I think, has been in the Magic Formula a few times. So, this could be a similar, look at that, Semler Scientific. So this is one that Yen Liao just bought into in the third quarter of 2021. It's on my short list of companies to dig into. And you can see here on 61 on the market cap to levered free cash flow ratio there. So definitely not cheap. But, it's got a lot of growth according to Yen and his quick pitch that he gave in Equity Mates podcast. So, this could be a really interesting way to come across new ideas, especially if I think, a way to really narrow this list down is to include like a cloner column here, a cloner metric, where you're only looking at companies that other great investors have bought recently. And I don't know of a quick way to do that in TIKR Terminal, unfortunately. That would be a great thing for them to add the functionality of. Obviously, they have a lot of investing gurus that they've populated into this particular tab, Track Investing Gurus. It would be awesome if there were a way to screen where you just add, it's got to be owned by at least one of these great investors that are already in the database. And there's just another column here with yes or no. Is it owned by another great investor? That would be incredibly valuable, but we don't have that. you know, I think this could be a very useful way to generate ideas. So, you know, I'm pleased with how this turned out. Again, you can tweak a lot of this stuff. Obviously, the gross profit margins. A number of Fundsmith companies have gross profit margins in the 30s and the 40s%. Like I said, the 65%, it's really just a weighted average. So these metrics may be a little bit too limiting in terms of what kinds of results we're getting. I do think it's valuable to be somewhat limiting on the industries that you're hunting in, really focusing on those industries that where there's superior, financials. There's more unfair advantages in these industries, as Yan Liao might say. More barriers to entry, stronger moats, things like this, just inherently in these particular industries. At least that's what Terry Smith has seen, looking at the numbers. So yeah, just wanted to, see what we could find, putting together a Fundsmith screener globally. Obviously, you could narrow it down further to just the US or whichever country you're hunting in. But this is kind of a first stab at what a Fundsmith screener might look like. Curious to hear from you guys if you have any suggestions about how to maybe improve this screener, or if you do see value in this, or you think, well, this Terry Smith would never use something like this. These average numbers are just that. They're average, and there's not really any way to screen using kind of these lump sum averages. But I think there is value to this exercise. So curious to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments about that. And again, if you don't have access to TIKR yet, it is still in beta. It's still free. You do need a link from someone who's already in TIKR in order to get access. If any of you need that, hit me up. I'm happy to share my referral link with you. I don't get any kickbacks from that yet because they haven't flipped the monetization switch. It's all free at this point. But when they do flip that switch and kind of transition to a freemium model, I may get some compensation from referring you. So obviously you don't have to use my link. There's a lot of links out there. But it's just a fantastic service. It's the best free resource I think I've come across as an investor. So definitely poke around this global screener and see what you can come up with. And I think I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.